أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما يا الله يا حي يا قيوم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the Dope Muslim Woman podcast. This is your girl, your host of the Dope Muslim Woman podcast, Sabria Mills. And I am coming on with our first Ramadan official podcast, hopefully, inshallah ta'ala. I'm just excited to be here. If you are here, please give your salams. This is really like our first time back. Well, I guess on my birthday was our first time back, but this is like our first podcast back. So if you're here, please go ahead and give your salams, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. How are you guys doing? Hey, Kadir, good to see you. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. Welcome to the Dope Muslim Woman podcast. Inshallah, in the spirit of transparency, we are still working to get Coach Rayesa on. I do know she is coming. Walaikum salam. But welcome back. Can we have a little bit of a powwow to the Dope Muslim Woman podcast? This is not our official season launch. Our official season launch, inshallah, will be in May for season 5. But this, as I mentioned, we will have a couple of Ramadan podcasts just to kind of keep us in remembrance during this month and to kind of keep us focused here. But as you come and give salams, if you can share it, that would be definitely great. Inshallah, we are waiting for our beloved guest, Coach Rayesa. And I wanted to just let you guys know, like most people know her, that she's been here on the podcast many times before. And she is the Divorced Muslimah Coach. And she specializes in coaching Muslim women in particular to kind of move beyond their divorce and to really use their divorce and this major life change to really pivot them into growth, pivot them into transcendence. And so she does a phenomenal job with this particular task and working with women all around the country, all around the world. And not only that, she's just a great personal development. She's just a great personal development coach. And we're just really happy and humbled to have her here. So we're going to be talking today, inshallah ta'ala, with her as she joins us shortly as it relates to, it's called Through the Storm. And it's really, we're talking a little bit about navigating divorce, navigating life challenges during the month of Ramadan, like actually using this month for ascension, to transcend, to ascend, inshallah, to a better sort of state, inshallah ta'ala. And alhamdulillah, we're so humbled to have her here. Without further ado, please welcome Coach Rayesa.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum salam, Coach Rayesa. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Sorry about the technical difficulties, and I finally made it here, alhamdulillah.
It's okay. Welcome. I had to give you like a nice introduction. Your family here, and it's funny, you're one of my most requested back guests. So people are often like, where's Coach Rayesa? Bring her back. So alhamdulillah, I'm so glad you can join us. Ramadan Mubarak.
Subhanallah, Ramadan Mubarak to you and all to all the guests and the listeners. And I'm honored and humbled to be back here again on this platform with you.
Yes, mashallah. So again, salam alaikum to my beloved audience members. Again, this is considered a nice Ramadan podcast. So you can go ahead and share this if you can, inshallah. But this is called Through the Storm. And we wanted to just have like this, I like to have heart-to-heart, one-to-one conversations, right, Issa, during Ramadan, because, Ramadan is so much about the heart. And it just makes a difference when, I can connect that one-to-one connection with my guests and we can really sort of have an experience here. Maybe might do a little coaching on the live because Lord knows I need it. So inshallah, we'll see. Well, alhamdulillah. SubhanAllah, I want to get right into the dialogue. I talked a little, everybody, this is, again, the Divorced Muslimah Coach, and we will break down throughout the conversation a little bit about what Coach Rayesa offers and her programs and, how you can get in contact with her. But I did want to just jump right into the dialogue, as it relates to this month of Ramadan. And this month becomes challenging for women in particular who are navigating something like a divorce or navigating heartbreak or navigating loss, because everything comes to like a spiritual head during this month. It's when you really have to kind of come back into alignment. That's if you were doing any type of numbing or coping, some of those things we have to put to the side, and feelings begin to come up to the surface. And, I, as a coach, get a lot of calls during Ramadan. I'm sure you probably get a lot of people reaching out during Ramadan because, again, they're dealing with uncomfortable feelings coming to the surface. So I wanted to just ask you, first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of divorce in the Muslim community. And number one, why is it still such a taboo in our community? And I wanted to ask you, are we getting better with being able to sort of show support and show understanding and empathy for those who are navigating divorce?
Yeah. Well, I think yes. Why it's still such a issue is because we're talking about years and generations even of being away from the Quran and the Sunnah, and not being on that path, whether it's coming from our ancestors from different lands that have been, that have had different views that were embedded in the culture and the society that were in contrast with Islam, and it just became part of the culture. And so I wrote a post once that I see that divorce is an opportunity, an invitation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to course correct. And I really feel that, not just from my own journey, but from working with other women and seeing the divorce literally plaguing our ummah, in families, breaking down families and communities. And that is the backbone of society, the family unit. There's lots of other things. Your question about why is it still an issue? Why is it still happening? There's also a lot of other messages besides what the cultural baggage, if you will, I'll use that term, cultural baggage that people from all different cultures bring in, whether it's, the Indo-Pac, the Arab, the African, even the American.
Yeah.
Culture. Every culture has their ideas about what marriage looks like. However, as Muslims, ethnicity is not the issue here. The issue is, what does the Quran and the Sunnah say? Right? And we have deviated from that. We have stepped apart from that, away from that. And the whole idea and the concept of what does family mean today, right? What's the role of the family? What's the role of the man? What's the role of the woman? What's the role of the husband, the wife, the children? Like, how do these roles fit as a puzzle piece in the fabric of community and society? We have lost the meaning of that.
Yeah.
And I mean lost, but I mean like what that means has evolved. I don't mean like evolved in a good way. It's deviated from the Quran and Sunnah. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So that's how I feel. I mean, I can go into a lot of depth, but that's just a general answer how I feel about the divorces that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I often, I've said this, that I think that sometimes even around the Muslim world, that we've really adopted a lot of colonized, ideals when it comes to marriage, because we know our Sunnah. And during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, marriages happened, divorces happened, there's widows, widowers, people took care of other people's children. I mean, that sort of was the norm, right? And there were, allowances, and there's a lot within our deen that provides regulations as it relates to that. But yet we're still attaching shame to divorce. SubhanAllah, when I think about through the storm, I'm really, a sister, she said that Ramadan could be really this sort of challenging, isolating time for people who are, having iftar with their families, or even just attending iftar with their families. And I remember that being something really, really difficult and challenging to me. I mentioned this, I revealed this last Ramadan. I had another live with Sheikh Kafani Sise, and I said that I actually went through my divorce during Ramadan at the beginning of Ramadan. And that was such a tremendous trial. You can imagine how that Ramadan was. And I was still trying to like be normal with my kids. Like, let's go to iftar, let's go to the masajid, now as this sort of like new single mom. And I remember feeling so out of place. I remember having a lot of thoughts of like, really like I was really concerned about the perceptions of others. Because one of the things that happens, Rayesa, and I want you to speak to this a little bit, but this was my experience, is that because the disconnection between a husband and a wife, which is such a spiritual connection, right? That's a divine connection, right? When that disconnection occurs, for me, I fear disconnection everywhere. Like I had paranoia about losing connections with everyone. Is that a normal process for someone who's navigating that? Like to often have these fears as they sort of begin to still try to navigate community, that they fear that people are, this isolation and that they will just be disconnected?
Yeah. I think that the isolation is very much so, but there's two types of isolation here. There's isolation that you're experiencing externally in the community. And then there's an isolation that's happening inside, up here. Because if we can isolate ourselves. We can isolate ourselves very easily when we're having thoughts or thinking, as you mentioned, around the perception of how people are perceiving us. And so when you're feeling self-conscious, we tend to retract. We don't put ourselves out there when we're feeling self-conscious or concerned or worried about how we look, because do we still fit in? When our identity is tied to a family, a marriage, and then as you mentioned that word shame, there's shame being attached to your new status, right? And the status of divorce versus marriage. All of those thoughts, those thinking, we're living in the feeling of our thinking. So we're carrying that around, and it's almost like how you think about yourself, how you perceive yourself is going to be how you show up.
Yep.
Not necessarily about them, but it's about what's happening inside.
I've learned that the hard way. I thought everybody was like, oh my gosh, we don't want to be around this divorced woman. But that really was just my internal thoughts that I was projecting. Yeah.
But that's wonderful, though. You learn something about yourself
that
allows you to grow and move beyond where you have been to a higher level, to an elevated level. And really, it's like most of the time people don't really care. We think that they care, and we think that they have us on their mind all the time.
Right. Don't care, really, right? Mashallah, there's
and if they have thoughts around their views around divorce and what that means about women who are divorced, then that's really that's their issue. Like, what can they do to you? Right. Really, like when you're connected to yourself and how you think about yourself, how you view yourself, that goes hand in hand with how you think about Allah. That goes hand in hand with how you view Allah and your relationship with Allah. So, my experience has been when you turn back to Allah, and divorce is an opportunity to do that. Divorce is an opportunity when everything gets uprooted, right? Internal and external. And so it's an opportunity to go back to reconnect to Allah in a new way. And Allah can, through the test, Allah will bring you the people that you're meant to be with and remove people that you're not meant to be with.
That's a word. Okay, so I have a question from Chaplain. I'm going to bring it right in because we trying to already get spicy. I can tell. But he said, why is the stigma of divorce greater against the Muslim woman versus the Muslim man, which is almost non-existent in comparison?
That's a great question. Non-existent in comparison. Wow, that's a real strong observation, right?
Yeah.
Just look at the cultural conditioning or the conditioning that we have around women in general, all around the world.
Yeah.
Right? Women are not valued the same way as men. They're deemed in the same in terms of their worth, right? Like just since the beginning of time, even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, like there was, female infanticide, right? They were burying their daughters alive. So just look at the way women have been treated by mankind, by society, since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
And Islam also came to correct that. Islam came to honor and give the female her position from Allah's eyes, in God's eyes, not in mankind's eyes, but in God's eyes. But the thing is that, do we as women see that? Do we as women understand and know and believe that? Do we look to that? Or are we looking for mankind or society or culture to give us our worth?
Right.
This is a God-given thing, but if you don't see it, if you can't see it and you're not able to see it, then you buy into that, right? That shame, that taboo, that, what does it mean about me as a woman having this status, my marital status being something other than not married?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a powerful point. And I also wonder if it has to do with sort of like, this, how women's sexuality is often judged as well. You know what I mean? It's like a woman divorced. She's like, and I mean, alhamdulillah, I think, in this society, at least I think we're better with that. It's not as like, ooh, this dirty, quiet thing. But I do know culturally, like in the Black community, I mean, maybe you can speak in other communities, but I do know I've heard this thing of like how much baggage she got. Everybody want to know how many kids people have, and it's kind of relative to the woman's worth. Whereas a man be having 20 kids. And he can hop, skip, and have 3 wives, if need be. So do you notice that there's also kind of that stigma around the concept of like baggage? And
there is, but let me back up a little bit. You said something about sexuality. What were you referring to? How were you relating it to we're talking about divorce? Right.
So in a sense of like a woman, maybe a man preferring a virgin, or even like a woman's, sexuality always kind of being measured, how many men she's been, how many times she's been married, divorced, things like that is a little bit under a microscope opposed to a man's sexuality. So I was speaking of that perhaps maybe that may have something to do with the stigma as well. And I don't know if that's
again that's sorry.
I don't know if that's relative to culturally different people's cultures or not.
Yeah, I think for sure, because I do know. I think, again, that speaks to cultural, societal conditioning, because we don't have that in Islam. We don't. Right. That's why, going back to the Quran and Sunnah, like people, like you said, got married, got divorced, raising people's kids, like they just moved forward, moved on. And yes, there is a certain value that is placed, even in our deen, with the virgin, right? With the virgin female. However, there's also other values that women who are divorced have that a virgin may not, because she has experience, she has wisdom. If she's grown and she's used her divorce to elevate, she has something that she can offer a man that an inexperienced woman does not have, right? So, and some men actually look for that, right? So it's really depending on what a man is looking for. Does he know himself? Does he know what he wants, what he's looking for? So again, I'll bring it back to cultural conditioning. And I don't know. You mentioned in the African community, like, are you talking about African American or even in the Black African continent?
Black folks, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the concept of baggage when it comes to children that may create a bit more of a stigma. And that, we could relate that to like
I think all cultures have that. You could speak, I think, more authentically from the Black Muslimah perspective, being from that community, but there's baggage everywhere. Every culture thinks that, and that's what I've seen, that she has baggage, and so it's really like, where are you at as an individual? How much are you in alignment with the teachings of Islam, of what Islam says about women, about men, about marriage, about divorce? Because we have all of that in the Quran. We have it,
right?
And we're not really necessarily looking there to define what divorce means or how it's applied. Absolutely.
You said something powerful. Like we're still looking externally for other things that define our self-worth. There was another individual, and they said that ethnicity becomes an issue for divorced Black Muslim women wanting to remarry. There's not nearly as much support or matchmaking from fellow Muslims as far as white and Arab women. So I guess the concern being, I want to make sure I understand, but I guess the concern being that like having support. But Rayesa, this is an opportunity to talk, and I mean, we can't speak for all demographics, but I think the divorced Muslim woman issue is across cultures, right? That's an issue. I even heard it may be even tougher in some other cultures when it comes to remarriage. Am I okay?
Like the Desi, Asian subcontinent, Indo-Pac. Oh my God, forget it. You're dead. Right. I mean, I'm sorry, but look at the culture that they're coming from when, in that culture, talking about the Hindu culture, they don't practice it in this day and age, but it's still embedded that when the woman's husband dies, she throws herself in the funeral fire. Like she ends her life, like her life is over. Literally, they used to jump into the funeral, fire that where the husband is being cremated. They shave their heads. They just wear all white because that signifies you're a widow. And that's that's the conditioning that they're coming from, like literally. But Islam is not about that. Look at the contrast in Islam. Your life, your worth is not defined from your marital status. Right. Full stop.
I don't know. We're having a hard time with that, though. No, I mean, really, alhamdulillah, it's being said now, because I could even think, I mean, I'm in my 30s, but I can even think back when I was growing up, that wasn't even a statement. That was, just to even say something like you just said. But I mean, I just think it's really important. Like our dear sister, she shared a sentiment that she's been divorced for 13 years. She wants to get married. However, being single for this long just makes it difficult and challenging. So you're talking about people that's been divorced for a long amount of time and wanting to remarry, wanting to reconnect. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So first, let me go back to the sister who said about the the African American Muslimah, that there's not as much support. Well, I will share a resource. One of my close sisters that I met locally here, actually I met online, but she lives local in Los Angeles. She has a program where she helps women, and she's African American. I think she's originally, her parents are from Kenya, I believe. And she helps women because really there is a perfect person that Allah has in mind for you. They're not perfect, but they're a great match for you. And you only need one. Okay. You only need one. And so she helps women to understand themselves. Understand, and I do this as well, but she focuses on this. And what it is that women have to understand is you have to know your identity. You have to know your core values. You have to know your purpose. You have to, are you in alignment, living in alignment with your values, your identity, and your purpose? And then you can invite somebody into that. And then you'll be able to tell, okay, is this person living, is this person matching me where I'm at?
Right.
And being divorced is a wonderful opportunity. I've been divorced for like 9 years, and I'm finally in the space where I'm ready for that as well. And so I've been doing a lot of this work, with myself, for myself, to getting really, really clear, because how can the one that's matched for you come into your space, into your life to partner up if what you needed to learn and how you need to grow hasn't happened in order to welcome that person in? So there's real work to be done. And being divorced, being single, having a relationship with Allah, and having a relationship with yourself that is just, knowing yourself to the extent through your relationship with Allah is just going to take you to that level to welcome and receive that right person. And that's the work that needs to be done. It's not like going on the matchmaking apps and things like that, looking through like a needle in a haystack, looking, who's there for me? Who's going to be there for me? No, you have to know yourself and that where person is going to walk in. Allah's going to bring that person into your life when you're ready to receive what it is that you want. But for that, you have to know what you want. So there is help out there. There is resources out there. And I will be happy to share her name here.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khairan. I mean, subhanAllah, you said what I think is a mantra in the Dope Muslim Woman podcast, what I often say over and over and over and over again. And we really do attract from the place in which we are. And I think you spoke about something really powerful, like just the power in your thoughts. Like that's kind of what you're going to see on the outside of you. If I believe that, there's no brothers out here and there's nobody and I'll just be single forever, well, then that's what is going to be within my reality. Like you literally have to shift. And I love that you said you have to find alignment within you, authentic alignment within your purpose and in your values and all of that, so that your thoughts can shift. Because it's really the core beliefs that need adjustments. And I love that you said that. And that's the real work. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. That's instead of the matchmaking, so that's the real work. Because as someone, and I know you've probably seen this with your service, Coach Rayesa, but in my program with women, which I'm not really dealing with like the divorced woman, I'm just dealing with women. If they are in this like sort of stuck place and they do desire like partnership at the end of it, typically they go through the program, they have a lot of like ascension and growth. And then they're calling me up like 3 months later talking about, they found this, they're attracting different type of energy.
Yes.
It really is much
because
more
you're radiating your energy at a very different level, and you're looking for a high level man. You got to be that high level woman that he's looking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely powerful. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. I want to thank you for that point. I wanted to just bring us back. There's a lot of conversation here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the ego during the divorce. When the life takes a tremendous turning, you take a hit, there's a lot of things that happen emotionally. A lot of women feel shame. A lot of men feel a bruised ego, and there has to be some recovery there. How does a person move beyond their ego in an effort to have a true reality of their current condition when they're navigating something like a painful divorce?
That word ego, we have to understand what it is.
Yeah. Because it's not all bad. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like how it works. And something you said earlier was that our thoughts really affect our reality. It's true, because it doesn't matter the circumstance or the situation you're in. What matters is how you're approaching it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And our ego, all it is just this chatter in our mind. It's our thoughts. It's everything that we've ever thought. It's conditioning that how you have learned how to deal with hurt, how to deal with anger, how to deal with frustration. And this is a program, like we get the way our brain works. It's just a program. It's just it's like a computer program. And what happens is that how you've been conditioned to deal with certain emotions, and ego is just emotions. It's your feeling. It's being in your feelings.
Yep.
Because our feelings are just showing us the quality of our thoughts in the moment.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm listening. Yeah, I'm listening. I just have to charge my computer, but I'm listening.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Please continue.
So we can't trust our ego, because our ego is just a series of programs and how we've been conditioned to think. And when our ego is operating in that play, we're not in our conscious mind. We're in our subconscious mind. So all sorts of stuff that's in there is going to pop up, especially when I said emotions. We're talking about hurt. We're talking about pain. We're talking about, all the sadness, anger, frustration, the feelings that come up, because we're thinking, feeling beings, in a trial, in a struggle, in a conflict, feelings come up, and those feelings are pointing and indicating to us where we need to heal. And that requires to come back here, not out there. He said this, he did this, and she did that. And and dealing with that, you got to come back in here. And what is the message Allah's trying to give me here? What is it that I need to learn? What is it I need to see? Pausing when the ego starts, that bruised ego you're talking about. When that comes up or rears its head, that's your cue to pause and connect back to yourself and Allah, because the answers will be there on how to navigate. We can't navigate and make decisions from a place of our ego, which is just our feelings. That's we're making emotional decisions left and right and making more of a mess. We need to come back, pause, and tap into that heart-centered wisdom, the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding us with, and that's part in our fitrah. But we've just gotten disconnected from our fitrah. Right. And it's about coming back home and getting reconnected so we can respond from our highest self, from how is Allah guiding me in this moment?
Right, for sure. I mean, I think, subhanAllah, that's a very powerful point. It's a new awakening I'm personally having as it relates to, and it's something we hear all the time, like, subhanAllah, like every, the qadr of Allah or every experience that Allah gives you is, for, to bring you closer to him, etc. Like we kind of hear it, but I really am in an awakened state about this. And Rayesa, I made a specific dua about 8 months ago. And I was going through a time, to put it lightly. And I was really confused because I was thinking, this is what I thought in my entitled mindset, that I made istikhara. I asked Allah. I thought I was confirmed that I should move forward in something. Why is it not working? Right? A lot, like in my entitled mindset, right? So I had to make a dua and I had to ask Allah. I said, Allah, please take over my affairs. Yeah. I'm taking myself out of the driver's seat.
Yes.
I don't. And when Allah took over my affairs, he took over. Not only did he take over my affairs and rectify my condition, but he gave me the awakening that it was within my attachment to the outcome, right? Allah, every experience is good. Every experience is, he did answer my istikhara. Yes, it was a confirmation to move forward. I needed that experience for the next level. And I didn't quite, because I hear that often. Did you make istikhara before this or before that? And if it didn't work out, you must have didn't listen to your istikhara. No, Allah answered. You were supposed to have that experience.
Yeah.
I think like really, really like breathing that in has been so awakening for me. Can we talk a little bit more about just really being able to use some of these experiences, especially painful experiences, especially marriage, because we attach ourselves to outcome. We think we do the right thing. We get married. We're supposed to be married forever, have 2 kids in a white picket fence.
Yeah. Look at the conditions we put on Allah. Look at the conditions we put on Allah.
Entitlement.
Yeah. It's arrogant. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Who's the servant? Who's the master? It's like getting back into who are you? Who are you and who is Allah? That's it. You can navigate anything in life by holding on and knowing those 2 things. Yeah. One thing you said, you were like, I was thinking this. That's the whole problem. Right. And this has been my mantra for 2021 during the pandemic. I was like, Rayesa, you think you know, but what is it that you actually know? Just stop thinking. And that's what I mean by the pause, coming back here. Because like, I think I got to do this and I got to do this and I think I should do that. And what about this and what about that? It's like a headless chicken running around. No, your answers, Allah will give you the answers. Allah is going to guide you. We ask him for that 17 times a day. He's there to guide us. He didn't leave us here by ourselves, but we're, like you said, you handed it over back to Allah. He gave you the problem, or like he gave you the challenge, and you handed it back to Allah and say, facilitate for me, guide me. But then when we ask for it, are we in the space to hear it?
Right.
And when we're up here in our head, we're not in the space to hear it with our ego chatter, racing thoughts. It's only when we're down here, we paused, we're doing our grounding work, we've connected back to Allah and ourselves in the present moment, where you are become open to hearing Allah's guidance for you, having the insight to say, oh, okay, this is what I mean, having the clarity. And when you're when you're connected to yourself and you're connected to your fitrah, you're in a state of clarity, you're in a state of tawakkul, you're in a state of confidence, and that's inherent within all of us if we just connect back to it.
Absolutely. SubhanAllah, Jazakallah. I wanted to ask a question on behalf of sisters who come to me all the time. They always say, Sabria, please do a podcast. Please tailor more information specific to our condition. And these are my mature sisters. My sisters maybe post 50. and who've navigated divorce maybe a long time ago, or just navigated divorce. And what has been expressed to me is that the challenge of remarriage is very difficult. Having hope in that process that they could sort of, start over again in these sort of latter years. Um, is there some hikmah, or what I've heard from some of them and said, well, because we're old, we just have to accept the fact that that's it, there's nothing for us. Is that, what mindsets should a mature sister have, knowing that when we want to keep it real, like there's dynamics within our culturally in Islam where Muslim men are overlooking our mature sisters. They're going, as you mentioned, for the virgins and for the young sisters, and thinking even that's the prophetic way. What are some things that we can say just to the hearts of some of our more mature sisters as they're navigating this particular challenge and storm?
Yeah. And that's a real thing of believing and buying into the narrative of what's been told to you and what you see is happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to point out one thing. What you see is happening. However, real sight comes from here, not from here.
Say that again, Rayesa, if you don't mind.
Yeah. What I was talking about is what we see happening in our community, of how the mature sisters are getting passed over, or they're left behind, and the perceptions we make about it. We see it and we see it happening, and then we make certain perceptions around it about ourselves, or we see it in a certain light. And what I'm trying to say is that sight, according to Allah in the Quran, sight comes from here, not from here. Okay, because Allah tells us in the Quran, it's the hearts that are blind.
Yeah.
Right. And when you said that you had an experience recently that's brought you an awakening, because you stepped into clarity. You were able to have clarity on what you needed to do. That's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed a veil from your heart for you to be able to see clearly what was right for you. That's why. It's not like it didn't come from up here. It came from here. This is not the organ that brings truth. This is just a program that's been programmed since we have, by the time we're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And it's just running. That's why we're reacting. This is the organ where truth comes from, when we connect it back to the one who knows the truth, to the Quran and to the Sunnah. That's where we look for truth as Muslims, right?
Yeah.
So you said something else. You said, maybe they're losing hope in the process. And I would say maybe they're losing hope in the possibility. That type of thinking goes hand in hand with how we think of ourselves and how we think of Allah. Losing hope in the process means you're losing hope in Allah, because who is the one that just has to say be and it is? It's kind of a test of our faith. Do we believe that? We say we believe, but do we really believe? And maybe perhaps you're being tested in that. And Allah shows up for us in our life the way we think about him.
Yeah, I am as my servant thinks I am.
That's right. And part of that, and how I talk a lot about your relationship with Allah and your relationship with yourself. They go hand in hand. So if you don't believe that you're worthy to have a partner that you desire to come into your life, you're blocking yourself, because you're also going to believe that Allah can't send you that. See how the belief about the self and about Allah go hand in hand?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could be a test of your relationship with Allah, your relationship with yourself. I hope. What are you hoping? Is your hope tied to what you see in society and community? Or is your hope tied to the one who can make anything possible by saying be and it is? I think that's the journey there.
SubhanAllah. There's the element of, really navigating and shifting the lens here. And it's this idea, like we talk about tawakkul, but it's like really, we hear that, but really, what is that? Because that's such a powerful, like it's such a powerful experience if you can actually have true tawakkul in Allah. Rayesa, what does that mean when we say that? Because we hear it all, have tawakkul, have tawakkul.
I love that. I love that because that, oh my God, that is I love talking about that. Teaching about that, helping ladies. That's what I do in my program. Divorce is a tawakkul building exercise. Elevating tawakkul. It is, right? We know that. Yeah. That's why Allah puts that in the chapter on talaq in the Quran. That if you rely on me, I'll find a way out for you. And there's like uncharted territory when you're going through a breakup, and your marriage is gone. You no longer, are you relying on your marriage, or are you relying on the one who gave you that marriage, right? So it's an opportunity to course correct. What are we really relying on? And believe you me, when I went through my divorce, all of that came uprooted to the top, to the surface level, that I was relying on everything and everyone except Allah. Right. And that's been my journey ever since, is returning back. And the topic of tawakkul, you know what? When we are in our fitra state, when we're in connection with our fitra state, that means we're connected to ourselves and Allah in the present moment. Our natural state is tawakkul. Because guess what? Where we come from, Jannah, all we know is Allah. We count on Him, rely on Him. Like, we're so attached to Allah. But when we come onto this earth, we go through life experiences in life, and we get disconnected from that attachment, and we build up attachments to people, to relationships, to children, to our marital status, to our education, our looks, our car. The list goes on and on and on. It starts infiltrating the heart. That space is only meant for Allah. It's the only thing that can contain Allah, which is a believer's heart. So embodying tawakkul means moment by moment, is Allah on your mind. This is a model that I teach in my program, Reinvent Yourself After Divorce, that we're talking about tawakkul here. That is what we need to navigate life. Right. Particularly, we're talking about divorce here, but any challenges, right? But tawakkul is relying on God exclusively. However, how can we have tawakkul if we're not conscious of God? Can't. It's the precursor to tawakkul is taqwa, which is what Ramadan is all about. It is attaining taqwa, higher levels of taqwa, right? Allah Subhanahu tells us that in the Quran and Surah Baqarah. So the precursor to tawakkul is taqwa, which is God consciousness. However, if you're not aware and conscious of yourself, how are you going to be conscious of God? So a precursor to taqwa or God consciousness is self-consciousness, self-awareness. You see how the relationship with yourself and the relationship with Allah, they go hand in hand to get to that tawakkul. And that's a journey.
Subhanallah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. The precursor to tawakkul is taqwa. And that's what Ramadan is all about. MashaAllah. Nice mantra. So Brother Yusuf said, some people want to be married, but haven't looked at how they'll show up in a marriage, how great a partner is, because people are looking for great partners, but people are perfecting their life alone, not how a partnership may look, thinking about relating well to another. Alhamdulillah, thank you for your comment. And Sister Saudia said, that's what I realized when I got divorced. I was putting my trust and reliance in a person instead of Allah. Then I had the awakening of what I have been doing for years. And now it's about tawakkul.
Awesome.
And I think for women in particular, Rayesa, one of the ways, this is ways that showed up for me and a lot of other divorced women I know, at least, is like that immediate test of financial struggle. Not everybody goes through that, but a lot of us do. And
I can speak on that.
That's like a true, like, tawakkul. Like, Allah's like, I'm gonna, like, okay, you're not putting the work in to build your tawakkul. Like, here you go, because you have no other choice but to rely only on Allah in some of those states, because it gets really right that financial piece. Oh, ya Allah.
Yeah, because like we make it so heavy and so big, but if you simplify it, you get back to basics. What it's really about is understanding. This is a huge concept that I teach in my program as well, to help people recognize what are they relying on, because there's a difference between the source and the means. And are you relying on the means or the source? And when I've been a pharmacist for 24, 25 years almost. And I recently, in the last few years, decided to leave that career to do what I'm doing now. And I
Yeah.
had to ask myself, like, I would work like 4 days a week and just 4 days a month, sorry, part-time. And I was just staying in there, holding on to it, holding on to it. I'm like, why am I here, Rayesa? Am I here for a paycheck? And
Ooh.
what came to me is like, my paycheck comes from Allah.
Mm.
The job was a means. The husband is a means. Those things come and go. But when we hold on, when we mistakenly, maybe even innocently, attach ourselves to the means is gone and you're broken. You fall apart. No, because when you're attached to the source, means come and go, but
Yeah.
your reliance on the source is always the same. And you can follow your dreams. Like, I feel like I could, because I could leave that and I could rely on still being taken care of the way I was my whole life, and still am, because the source has never abandoned me. And
Gosh, I needed to hear
understanding
that.
that, yeah, allowed me to follow my dreams, and it can for anybody else as well.
Yeah, subhanallah, man, subhanallah. I just needed to hear that. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan for that in particular. But yeah, mashallah, that's one of those elements of the storm when people are navigating. Everything seems to kind of be happening all at once. You lost the connection, you're navigating challenges with children. Now financially, you don't know what's going on, you figuring out where you're gonna live, gotta handle maybe a legal divorce, community's challenging. Like, you have all these things happening at once.
Been there, done all of that.
How do you center it? How do you bring it all of the it's a storm. How do you bring it all to the center, Rayesa, when it's
Yeah. We want to be at the center of the storm. We want to be in the eye where it's stable, right? There's stuff swirling around the storm, like outside of you, right?
Yeah.
You said some really important words: grounding, coming back to connection. What's just happened is lost connection with Allah and yourself. And it doesn't mean that he's no longer in your life. It's just that I'm talking momentarily. It's kind of like a Wi-Fi, internet connection. If you don't have a good, solid, secure connection, you won't be able to transmit. You won't be able to do the work you need to do. Same thing. How is your connection to Allah? How is your connection to yourself? Can you sit in the present moment? Are you constantly doing things to keep yourself busy? Because you mentioned at the beginning, avoiding and coping and numbing, right? That's a coping mechanism of all of that busyness.
Yep.
Right? Because you can't sit still. You can't sit in the turbulence of your own feelings, your own emotions. But there's a message in that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inviting you back to him to help you heal those places that need to be healed, that are being pointed to. And it's not out there. It's inside of you. Absolutely. Because you can be that solid, secure, stable, attached to Allah, even when there's a storm, brewing outside around you. And it's really returning back to Allah, making dua, doing your grounding practices. And that looks different for everybody. And so that's the first part. And the second part is that this is what I focus on and teach, is helping you to understand where your human experience is coming from. How your thoughts and feelings, what do they mean? Where are they coming from? What's true? What's not true? Believing everything you think. Do we believe everything we think? Do we believe that's truth? Or where are we looking for truth? Where are we looking for clarity? Understanding how we work as human beings, that we're having a spiritual experience in a physical world, because we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Yeah. So, understanding that, and a lot of us we don't understand that. I myself didn't understand that until I started, seeking out help for my divorce, because everything I was thinking, I thought was true, including what I thought about myself, including what I thought about Allah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going inward and not going outward. You're not going to find the answers out there. The answers are in here, because Allah is the one who's bringing you the answers. That's where you got to go.
Absolutely.
Make dua, seek out help.
SubhanAllah, Jazakallah. I wanted to ask you, I know we're wrapping up, inshallah, in a few minutes. I want to end on time. But I did want to ask about something specific. For people who are navigating ending a union that was abusive, toxic, narcissistic, and not only is there a level of immense trauma there, but there's also a lot of pain and anger, maybe even fear towards the ex. You're in Ramadan, it's all on the surface, you're navigating, making it through this and trying to navigate some of these really negative emotions you have about your ex.
Yeah.
What are some ways that an individual can navigate the heaviness of ending a toxic relationship? And what is the best way to look at or move towards looking at your ex who might have been a bit unhealthy?
Yeah. Well, part of what I was saying earlier, first of all, for everything I say dua, because it's only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you, he's the one who does the healing. He's, a shafi. He's the one who will do the healing. And we're talking about navigating, but essentially what you're really talking about is healing those wounds, those pains, those hurts. And when you've gone through a breakup, you will become triggered, maybe by seeing your ex, maybe by hearing something about him, maybe he's doing something, right? And that trigger is your friend. That trigger is going to bring up those heavy emotions. They belong to you. You own them. So that's not about him. The emotion you own. It's a signal. I'm a Back to the Fitra mentor and educator and coach. And at Back to the Fitra Academy, we call this a love letter from Allah. Pause. Allah's trying to show you something. He's showing you where you need to heal. He's showing you that you need to learn and grow somewhere. And it's not about him anymore. It never was about him. It's about you. So putting the focus on where it's about, which is you, and not taking things personally in this process that, we live in separate realities. He's doing or saying, or he did certain things, but that's a reflection of him. But really understanding this, so when we understand separate realities, we don't take things personally, we don't get offended, because we're not defining ourselves through that person's actions.
Yep.
We're defining ourselves through ourselves and our behavior, right? So the pain that comes up is just showing you where you need to heal. And there's a lot of healing work that needs to be done, because when a person lives or comes out of has been in an abusive relationship, there was a point that you didn't know that it was abusive. You accepted and tolerated it, right? Because that was a norm maybe for you. Maybe that's what you saw. And that's how you were conditioned. But at some point when the balance tips and then the abuse is more than what you felt was normal, then you're like, no, wait, this is not okay, right? And so we need healing from that space that we were in of why is it that as a servant of God, as a magnificent, worthy, elevated servant of God, why were we in a space that we allowed that we couldn't see that, and we accepted it, right? So we need healing with that, and only Allah can provide that healing, right? And he uses people like mentors and coaches and therapists to help us along that way. But that's the key here. Your pain and your trauma and your wounding is not about the other person. And to come back to that, when you see that and you focus on that, that's where your focus needs to be. That's where your focus needs to be. And, asking Allah, seeking out the help, because you can get out of that space. Because I'm sure you've experienced this, Sabria, and maybe some other viewers who are here with us. When you have healed, you're like, you can spot the abuse, or you can spot, as you call, narcissistic behavior or tendencies or characteristics, and you're like, that's not for me. I'm out. Like I'm not gonna engage in this.
Right.
I've elevated beyond that. I'm not gonna engage in that, and that person just falls off, because that only happens if you're engaging at a subconscious level, and you were, because you just didn't know any better.
Right.
And to answer that question of how you can have perhaps good thoughts about your ex, or be in a space of calmness and neutrality. Let's start with neutrality first before we get to wanting good for this person who's now your Muslim brother, right? No longer your ex, your partner, but your Muslim brother. The other thing is acknowledging. You're feeling anger, don't squash it, don't suppress it, don't, like, no, I can't be angry. No, I can't be angry. Well, you are angry. Allah gave you those feelings for a reason, and He's trying to teach you something. So acknowledging them and understanding what it is they mean. And once you start healing, you won't take things that He has done. You'll let them go. That baggage starts to slip and fall away. And you step into a higher elevated self, a healed self. You know that saying, hurt people, and heal people.
Yep.
The energy that you're radiating and you're transmitting from is one of, you know what, I want good for him. You know what, or I don't want bad for him. You go from maybe like, because I had a client today who's like, right now, I just want bad for him. Right?
Yeah, that's the process, right?
Yeah. I'm like, okay. And that's okay, to have thoughts and feelings. We don't get judged on that. We get judged on our actions. Mm-hmm. So if we're acting on that anger that we're having, then that's where Allah takes us to account. But if you're striving to do what's pleasing to Him, even in your anger and your frustration, Allah sees that and He rewards you for that. And as the healing comes, those anger, animosity, frustration starts to fall away. You get to neutrality. Then from neutrality, if you want to elevate even more, you can go to radiating positive energy to this person because you see them as a human being, flawed just like you are.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. Beautiful, beautiful nasiha. We are at the end of our time, and I want to be respectful for people on the East Coast who have to begin to prepare for iftar. But Brother Yusuf did say something that just hit a nerve. And he was saying that he's afraid people, I'm not going to read his whole comment, but he was saying that he's afraid that people retreat into themselves, sometimes become hermits. There needs to be a timetable, or so that if you're needing more time or if you're hiding. And I do think that's a powerful point, because I do see this a lot with Muslim women. And it's this idea of like, oh, I'm healing. And it's also a means to sort of cope or not, sort of navigate the difficulty or the challenge of being courageous and taking another risk. Yeah. And we, again, you talk about your thoughts. We have a lot of thoughts about that. Coach Rayesa, and we're going to end, inshallah, on this point, but do you have anything to say about that? I know that comes up probably quite a bit in your coaching practice. How does someone balance that for a time to heal versus I'm just going to hide within this healing process, so I never have to take a risk again?
I love that question. And yes, I have a lot to say about that, because none of us can do this alone. Okay. Right. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us on earth with people, and we're here to help each other. So yes, make the dua. You have to turn to Allah first, and guarantee you, when you know who Allah is, you know that He will send you what it is that you need when you need it. And it's your job to say yes. So if you're going to be living in fear, like
say that again. I'm sorry. It's just certain things I just want you to repeat, because I need people to hear that. It's your job to say
yes to yourself, because you can hide and you can say, no, I'm healing. It's just me and Allah. But guess what? It's you and Allah and your ego and your thoughts and how you've been conditioned and programmed to think about yourself and Allah. And you're just going to be following that same program. You want to get out of that. You want to elevate. That's something that's going to help you in this life and the next. And we all need help. I'm telling you, like, only thing I invest in my life right now is support to elevate, whether it's for my finances, whether it's like for my spiritual, emotional, mental, physical health, whatever it is. Like, I have a coach for everything. And you know what? It's because I want help. I just don't say I want help. I asked Allah for the help, and guess what? He sends me in my feed, in my, communication, in my world, the people that I need that can help me. There's no coincidences. Allah sends you who you need when you need it. Your job to say yes. You can open the door and walk in. Allah actually opens the door for you. You can step in, or you can shut the door and hide. And you have to take ownership of your actions, because there's tie your camel and put your trust. And you have a role to play. Allah has a role to play in terms of the outcome and the healing. Okay. You want healing, you have to go to Allah. However, we can't go there by ourselves. We're not living in this world by ourselves.
Yes.
So you got to own, if you want help, if you want to heal, you got to own that, and you got to put your money where your mouth is. That means you got to invest your time, your energy, your commitment to yourself, because you see that there is some worth in you that Allah put in you, and you have to invest your money. We spend money on everything except growth
Mm.
and healing. We spend money on bags, on shoes, on clothes, on makeup, on vacations. And
Mm-hmm.
it's because we value that. We justify it. It's a no-brainer. But how about, your growth? How about something that is going to elevate you into the best version of you, the potential that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in you? And we all have this within ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. But many times we are the ones that are holding ourselves back.
Yeah, that part. And I really want people to take that as an ending, like strong nasiha. Like Sister Sophia said, this is so true. Plus, we continue to see women being broken. There's concern about meeting someone that will deceive us again, right?
Okay, can I say something about that?
Please.
Because that just spoke to me. We see people being broken again. Remember, we see this is where a true sight comes from here, not from here. You may see people being broken again, but perhaps sometimes that's what they needed to come back to Allah. Okay, it's not about, Allah didn't create us broken. We may feel broken, but we're not. Yeah. We're perfectly whole. We're just not seeing it or believing it in the moment. Okay, and the other thing about that was that people may deceive you or hurt you. This is one thing that I learned, is that when you know who Allah is, He is the protector and the Lord of the worlds. Do you believe that He's your protector? Meaning that when you go into, I just had a recent experience, when you go into meeting and talking to a new potential, you don't know this person, but when you counting on Allah to be your wali, your wakil, your protector, your provider, and you really believe it, and you show up, and that's why you have to know yourself and Allah. You have to know your identity, your values, and your purpose, and your red flags. And if you don't know that, you haven't done that work, then you'll be swept away by emotion. And if we're really counting on Allah to protect us, we don't have to worry. We just have to do our part, show up with taqwa, and Allah will take care of the rest. Allah will protect you. You don't have to worry, because how will worry help you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. SubhanAllah, forged forward with courage. SubhanAllah, Jazakallah khairan, Coach Rayesa. Thank you so much for this powerful conversation. I really appreciate it. I hope it was really beneficial to the women and the brothers who are here. Thank you so much for your participation.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much for
having me.
Can you
talk a little bit about your program and what you offer to individuals?
Yeah, sure. Well, I work with people in one-on-one private settings and even in group settings. And my group setting is amazing women from all around the world. And we really get to connect. And I build that safe space where you can be vulnerable and authentic and really share what is really coming up for you. Because when you can share that, then I can help you see where you're not seeing something. I can help you connect back. My role really in all of this is to help you connect back to your fitra and back to your relationship with Allah and yourself through understanding yourself, right? And in those programs, we go through the healing process. And it's through those two relationships, understanding your psychology, understanding how you're processing, and what does it mean? And the insights that the women have in the group are just mind-blowing, because when they can start seeing themselves the way Allah sees them, rather than the way maybe they see themselves, how they were conditioned to see themselves, or other people see them, a new person evolves. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be in that space, to hold women's hands and go through that. And then, you can pursue your dreams. You can pursue your aspirations without fear. And that's such a beautiful place to be, and living your potential. And it's a journey. It really is a journey, because my 12-month program is for a year, because it's a year-long commitment that I require for people to really go into themselves and evolve like that butterfly. And for people who want the private experience, I have that as well. It just really depends on your preferences.
SubhanAllah. So thank you. You heard it from Coach Rayesa herself. She's a great friend to the show. She's a great friend to me. The website is www.Rayesa, is it Gheewala? Am I saying that right? .com. You can see it here in Instagram. Go follow her right now. If you have social media, she's amazing. And we want to definitely support our Muslim coaches and our Muslim therapists and those who are out absolutely doing the hard work that our community needs. And we need to continuously support this sort of work, inshallah, because ultimately, as she mentioned, calling you back to your fitra, calling you back, inshallah, calling us all back to what our original state should be, which that is that divine connection between us and Allah. Thank you so much, you guys. All right, quick updates really quickly.
Can I just share one thing? I wanted to share the sister wwho does the working with men and women. Her and her husband are a team. I just wanted to share that resources because I mentioned it. Her name is Zahra Al-Birji, I think it's her last name, but she's on Instagram under the Practical Muslimah. And that's her website as well. Yeah. And check her out. Anybody who is looking to get back in and finding the partner that their dream partner, that they want to be in alignment with and live a purposeful life with. Her and her husband are amazing in terms of helping you to do that.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much for that resource. May Allah bless each and every one of you guys. Quick updates next week. Inshallah, we're coming back next Thursday at 6 p.m. for another Ramadan live. Probably will be our last one. It's called The 5 Before 5. And we're talking about a play about that, where we're talking with a sister as we talk about navigating some of the day-to-day challenges that young Black Muslims navigate in this society, as well as trying to stay close to the deen. So it's going to be a powerful discussion we're going to have next Thursday at 6 p.m. inshallah. So come back next week. Thank you to Coach Rayesa. For those, we will be live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on, inshallah, July 23rd, next Sunday, for a live podcast show at 6 p.m. It's co-hosted with the Traveling Muslimas. The link is in my link tree. You can come and kind of connect. And if you are in the tri-state area, I ask that you come. It's, all you have to do is register online, but you can come and participate in the podcast, as well as have a very, very hearty Philly style iftar. So I look forward to connecting with all of you guys. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum. Take care.
Wa alaikum salam.